This week in Hey the Parents, we're talking all about parenting burnout because it's a season where there's just a little extra stress in the air. Between taking turns of talking your significant other out of the tree, normalizing those tough days, and finding a little laughter to get through it all, this episode is all about finding some sanity in the chaos. So grab that stress ball and your scented candles, because in Hey the Parents, it's an honest discussion about raising kids. I'm Michael Height.
I'm Sarah Deep.
And I'm Mike Levine.
Kids don't come with a handbook, so we need your help.
Where do babies come from?
Where do you think they come from?
Is this a kissing book?
Mama! Mama!
What?
Hi.
I learned it by watching you.
There are no rules in this house. Not like a regular mom. I'm a cool mom.
We sent them to the best boarding schools. We hired the best nannies. We did everything right.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf!
No drinking, no drugs, no kissing, no tattoos, no piercings, no ritual animal slaughters of any kind.
Together, we can rule the galaxy as father and son.
This is Hey Other Parents, an honest, messy, imperfect show for raising kids.
Hey, welcome back. It's us again.
Heidi.
Hello. Toodly-doo.
Toodly-doo.
What's
How's it
up, my
going?
three amigos?
What's up, buddy?
It's the three best friends that anyone can have.
I feel like last episode, Sarah and I were doing it. We're like, do we put the clip in from Mike or not? Like, I don't know. Is it wrong? I don't know how we do these things. So we're so glad that you guys came back to this podcast to join us as we figure out this parenting thing. Whether you were in the car, folding laundry, squeezing your stress ball, cooking dinner, getting organized, or on the go, we know that you have a lot of choices for podcasts out there. So thank you for listening to ours. And we'd like to send a big welcome to our new moms and dads listening, a big hearty hello to the returning listeners, and a big hug for those of you getting through the holidays like we are. So if this is your first time joining us on this podcast, Hey the Parents, it is a chance for a few of us parents who decided that we needed to join our efforts together to try to get through this, as we call it, a survival course. We pick a different theme, a different topic every week, and we discuss it from the standpoint of when we were younger, what we grew up with our own parents, and then we shift on over to now as adults where we didn't get a handbook and we don't know what we're doing. So we talk about what we go through, we share some of our experiences, we learn from each other, and every week we feel a little bit better because we have each other, we have all of you. So if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, we'll tell you a little bit later in the episode on how you can get in touch with us here. And without further ado, we're going to jump right into the main part of the podcast, and that entails the topic of the week. And this one is a doozy. So Sarah, what do we got going on today?
Oh, what a doozy. So we're talking about the very real topic of parent burnout. What are some strategies that we use to deal with that? Maybe some strategies that you might want to choose and try out yourself. And just to remind ourselves that at the end of this very dark tunnel, there is some light.
As we all sit in the corner, rocking ourselves in sanity.
Yes.
Yeah, we were like, it's funny because Mike hasn't been able to be in every episode. We were like, this one has to be with Mike. This has to be one of those ones because this is we got to go through this, baby. This is important stuff. So, Mike, what's the on a level of code orange, code green, code red? Get over here, you. Give me a hug. I love you. And that hug was for my child, but if you need a hug, audience member, you could have that too. So, Mike, what's the stress level in your house right now? What's how are things going?
If you ever watch Star Trek and you ever heard them say, red alert, yeah, it's a red alert.
I thought you were going to refer to one of your family members as a red shirt. I'm like, red shirt people don't make it through the episode, so you got to be careful with that. So I'm taking it things are kind of things are juicy right now.
You know what it is? It's just kids all the time. I mean, kids all the time. There's just three of them. There's two of us. And they're just all over the place, and they're just honest 24/7. And I just, it's red alert.
It's like you kind of hit a point where it's kind of you're feeling it. And Sarah and I were like, it's funny because we were we're kind of thinking through episodes. We were looking at this, and I think we had a couple ideas of where we were probably going to go this week. And we're sitting there, we're like, man, we're just at work, and we have a common area where people just kind of just work, they eat, whatever, nothing fancy, whatever. But anyway, so we're sitting around, and everyone's a little bit flipping out today.
Yeah. Flippy out day, nothing's working. Everyone's upset.
What is happening?
And
I'm like, Sarah D, how you feeling?
And I'm twitching in the corner somewhere. I'm like, it's great over here. I think, it's just 'tis the season. I think it's just a time that everyone's kind of feeling a little pressure, money situations, children's situations, getting sick. Like, oh, it's a lot
happening.
going on. 'Tis the season.
And like between like, I think we all can keep having the situation where like we kind of like get in. We were talking earlier. I think we were trying to figure out like what is it that puts us in this situation. I think like one of the things we discussed was like this idea that like kind of like you have the routines and you sort of like set it and forget it. And then they work until they don't. And when they all start falling apart, the routines that you should just be working because you set them up, like when they start to fall apart, everything starts shattering around you and you're like, oh my God. And like between that and like sick kids, and then they're supposed to be better, but then they're sick again and you're like missing work and then you're like trying to get caught up. It's all, we're feeling all of it. So this episode today, we have a lot of things that we were kind of like going to hit on. We didn't share too much with each other on how we're feeling, but we're hoping we kind of like get together and kind of help each other cope through this and get some good ideas on how we deal with it. But we have some strategies for self-care, recharging as a parent. We have some things about normalizing tough days, maybe just throwing out the idea of about perfection and whatever that means, and how laughter and friendship and the 3 best friends and hugs will help you get through this all. So I guess if anything else, maybe we can start with a couple little things here. So okay, so one of the things that was a big area that I think we were trying to discuss was this idea of how to recognize burnout and stress, because sometimes this idea of like, and I know I'm guilty of this, is like sometimes you'll just be like in a really bad mood and you just sort of can't wrap your head around what's going on and why it's happening. And I feel like that's like something that like Sarah pointed this out to me. She's like, sometimes I just have to like say, I'm home. I'm not ready to talk to you yet. I need a minute. And I think that is important, Sarah. Like,
yes.
How did you come to that conclusion?
Well, because like I feel like for the most part, I easily like let things like roll off my back, and it's like, oh, dog threw up, oh, no big deal, and oh, we need to go get the trombone that we left at school, no big deal. But the moment I realized
that was like a 2-sentence memoir that just put it all together.
But then when I recognize it, when I feel like literally like my hackles like a cat like I'm like ugh, and like everything is bothering me, then I'm like, okay, I'm feeling stressed. Or like when I'm dreading to go home, I'm like, okay, it's time for like mom to get like a little break. So like I'll tell the kids, I'm like, I'll help you with whatever you need. But I was like, you know what? I'm feeling a little stressed, or today was stressful at work. I need like a solid 10, 15 minutes by myself. And like now my kids are old enough where they're like, okay, cool. So I can close the door and like veg or like close my eyes for a second. So not quite meditating, but like not quite sleeping. But I have like a little timer, like, okay, after this 15 minutes, I get up and I like function again, So
you're like C-3PO. You're like, sir, I'm sorry, master. Can I power down for a few minutes?
Yeah, I literally need to power down. Just literally need to power down for a second or two.
Okay, I'll tell you where I'm bad at that, and I'm completely wrong with that. All of it. You're right. I'm wrong because I don't do that. I agree to stuff before I realize that I'm ready to like deal with the situation, and I'm like, 1 minute, just give me a minute.
Yes.
Where probably it would be much more healthy to be like, I'm not ready. I just need a couple minutes to. What are you doing? You okay? You could get on one episode and just tell everybody how I'm wrong.
This is what I tell you.
No, I usually say my wife's really smart and this is your ideas. All right. I like podcasting in the kitchen. This is fun.
Love it.
Maybe not the best episode to do in the kitchen.
No kidding. No, but like I think my wife's pretty when we talk about this stuff, she kind of notices it, and then it's one of those things where I find myself like maybe agreeing to doing something when I'm not ready yet, and then I don't have that time to kind of like get myself into a good mental state where I'm kind of like just in that moment of like, fine, just give me a minute, I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
Where I think it would be good to kind of like hit that reset button or power down like C-3PO.
Yes. Yeah, no, you need to power down, because sometimes I too, like there are times I do find myself in a thing and like I feel bad when I'm like, what? Like Lois from like Family Guy.
Yes. But she is endearing, right?
And my wife likes to use like she's overstimulated in the sense that like,
oh yeah,
she's got 3 kids touching her all the time or pulling on her or moving on her. And I'm like, and to me, it doesn't make sense. Like I get, the feeling of overstimulation, but like, I don't I guess I never feel overstimulated because the kids are never hanging on me like they are on her. So
Right.
like when I come home and I give her a hug or something or like a kiss,
She's
she's
like,
like,
don't touch me.
listen, just don't touch me right now.
Oh,
You know, and I get it though. I get it. I get
I
it.
totally get that too.
Because,
Totally
you
get
know,
that.
I
No,
understand. I understand. She's not an evil, wife. You know, she's not a wicked witch. You know, I get it. You know,
What else is she
you
not?
have,
I,
yeah, you have a
I'm like
toddler
kidding.
on you all the time.
yeah, I
you
think
know?
that's very, very real. That feeling, I think, I don't think it's just solely a female thing, but I think like sometimes because, as the mothers, we are the caretakers of a lot of needs and things of that nature. That like, yes, like that, like touch, like they're like on you, they're touching your hair, they're like wiping stuff
Yes.
on you. You can't look decent for
Yes.
like 5 seconds, and then like, it's just like one more thing. So like, I'm at this point past like all that touching, but I definitely like have like a lot of like that talking, like people want to talk and talk and talk, and there are times, God bless Gene, his little heart, he comes in, he's happy, he's like he's clapping, like some game is on, and I'm like, right, like he's just like like being gregarious, and I like literally like put my hands like on his hands, I'm like, please, I'm like, I can't right now.
Yeah, like his fingers on his lips.
Eyes like twitching.
Twitching.
Like,
like so
thinking negative thoughts. Like,
yes, I definitely feel tail on that. Like you just like literally like overstimulate physically, auditorily, tactilely. Like it's all
yes.
it's all
That's
there.
wild.
I
My wife
know.
has mentioned that as well. Like she maybe it's just what it's like to be around us, I guess. No, but the thing that I noticed is that she was reading I don't know where she was reading this, but she was reading about this feeling of being overwhelmed, overstimulated, and one of the things that she ended up buying. This is wild. This is going to sound highly insulting towards me, but it's fine. One of the things she bought is they sell these they're in-ear earplug things. I mean, all earplugs go in your ears, but they're these little these things you put in your ears, and you could buy them, and they're different percentage of audio. Like the percentage of audio that it allows in. So like you or the amount of blocks. So like they make one. You could. There's different inserts, whatever. So you can set it for like 75%. It's not electronic. It's just whatever, like 80%. If I'm around 100%. No, but the thing is like it's made so that you could kind of like tone down the amount of just like all the noise, and you could hear like what's close to you, but it doesn't need to be like this overwhelming sound of just like everything all at once, So I
Ooh,
think that's good.
I'll try that.
Should I put those in I'll send them to you. I'll find out what they are, and
Yeah.
maybe I'll put those in the show notes too, because it seems like people are like, I want that. Because like headphones have that. I guess like that's kind of the newer thing of like the the noise blocking, noise canceling, yeah, which is and then they have that thing where like it allows conversational stuff. It's like another option, so that like it's like you hear music or you hear something, and also someone starts talking, like it lowers, which I think it does the opposite effect. It kind of annoys me because I'm like, I was listening to something, what's happening now? But the it's kind of interesting that there are things that people are strongly recognizing that they're overstimulated during the day and need something to decrease that.
One of the things like we do when Taylor or I get like that is like we'll take the kids to like their extracurricular activities.
Their room.
Yeah. Like one of them. So like for instance, like Ellie likes to do basketball and dance and stuff. So Taylor will take her to dance, and she'll just have like an hour in the car by herself listening to music, chilling out.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
While Ellie's doing her dance stuff, and I'm watching the other two and just kind of holding down the fort until she gets back.
You know what? No, but that's good, because it's kind of like what I was mentioning before. I mean, I was doing it in a silly way, but there was this book from, was it Paul Reiser? It was like a really old book. And it was this book about, it was like talking your spouse out of the tree. So like you basically, the idea is at any given moment, one of you is probably out of your minds. So the other spouse, it's very helpful to be the one to talk you down. It's going to be okay. Come out of the tree. Come out of the tree, spouse. I'm usually the crazy one, but
out of our minds.
Yes.
You know what? Maybe you just talk one out of the higher branch.
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's just it gets tough. It gets I think as parents, we all, and I think we should all take solace in the fact that we all feel the same way. You know, whether you have 2 kids, 1 kid, 3 kids, 4 kids, we all get to that point where you're just like, oh, you feel that burnout, that pressure, that stress, you know, and you're just like, you got to get through it. And it's funny because you know how if you listen to our season 1, we talked about like New Year's resolutions and stuff. And do you guys remember what we do? BBP,
not
right?
bothering anymore. No, I'm kidding. It was be better people.
Yes, BBP,
Yes,
be better people, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So Taylor and I were like, you know what? We are better people. We're good people. We're good people. We we need to change it up because this isn't working. We're like, we just got to get up and do it, and that's what it is. It's like you feel that you feel like that burnout, and you just like, you feel dragged down, and you just got to say to yourself, get up and do it. Get up and do it. Just keep pushing through. You know. So we're gonna switch it up. We're gonna switch it up this year.
All right, well, you got you got 19 days to figure it out. So the thing that I think that we were also kind of thinking about was we're gonna like jump around a little bit with kind of like mini topics that have to do with this topic. And one of the things I think we all kind of recognize is when we're feeling this way, feeling stressed, and we're ready to pop, or just kind of just like have that feeling, or that we're getting loud with our voices, or our body language is just looking like we're ready to lose our minds. Our kids don't always necessarily understand that it's not about them, but they feel it anyway. So it's like really, really hard because like we were talking about this earlier, and I feel like sometimes like when we talk about it, I'm like, oh man, I'm feeling pretty guilty about this right now. I'm not sure if my kids realize this, because I feel like sometimes I get upset and like something's in my mind, or like something that's unrelated to them, and I have to like apologize to them because I'm like, I am not, this is not about you. I swear to God, like I'm stressed about something. You guys are great. Like I have to let you know because like this is a separate thing. And I realize like maybe like saying it is one thing, but actually modeling it is something else. So it's really hard to kind of clarify to the kids, like, you know, that when you're feeling this way, you need to separate yourself probably from the situation, or make it abundantly clear that this is not about them in any way, shape, or form.
And that's happened to me definitely with like Lucas, like, and you know, with all my kids, but actually Lucas just comes to mind because he pointed it out recently to me, and I was talking in like a frustrated manner, you know, and he's like, Dad, why are you mad at me? Like, and I said, and when he said that to me, it hit me like, oh man, I am like projecting onto him. You know what I mean? Like I gotta take a step back. And I told him, I'm like, listen, dude, I'm really sorry. I'm not mad at you. I've had a long day. And, you know, I think it's just really important to recognize that when you are projecting those kind of pressures and frustrations onto your children, and that you clarify it with them rather than them kind of just like developing some type of anger toward you because of the way you talk to them, you know?
Yeah, I think that's like a good strategy to kind of deal with those moments of like stress, is to like acknowledge that you're feeling stressed. And then like, you know, if you do have a moment where you are being short with the kids, or I've been guilty of the wow, and I'm saying the things at the wrong time during the story, you know,
Right.
it's to say, you know what, I'm really sorry, like I'm so tired, or I'm really annoyed by something else, not you, or it's a grown-up's thought or something. So like I think it's really good. Like a phrase that I learned from somebody, and I use all the time, is like, when I'm feeling like that, and I'm like, you know what, can we just, I'll say like, can we just pause this for 2 seconds? I was like, you know, like mommy's really stressed. I'm thinking about a million other things in my head. And I know you're telling me something. I want to be all ears. That's the phrase. I want to be all ears for what you're saying, because it's really important. And I just want to give you the attention. So just let me just muddle through this thought, or send out this text or this email, or whatever the heck it is that in this moment feels so pressure, like, you know, like it's like pressuring. And then be like, okay, like that's done. And now let's go back to the story. Because it is kind of sucky when you do the, okay, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
and like Julian loves to tell a good story, you know, and they're a windy road of a story sometimes. So, you know, you gotta buckle in, you know, and
Buckle in, baby.
It's gonna be a ride.
And he'll tell you, he'll be like, Mom, you said aha at the wrong time, or you said 3 ahas. And I was like, oh, my bad. Try again. So, it's good when they check in on you. But fascinating. Wow. But yeah, I think it's like sometimes like it's good to just say, you know what, like, let me stop for a second. Like I'll even like when I notice like when I'm in a rush or a little upset or like distracted, and even like I'll like that metacognition, like I'll even see that I'm maybe like messing up with the kitchen, like I dropped the egg, I almost spilled the pot, like you're getting like sloppy. Do you know what I mean? Like
memory unlocked.
Yes, and you're getting like, but you're getting frustrated, like, and you're doing these things because you're rushing, and you're like, So I'll even say, I'm like, look at Mom. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna take a second. I'm gonna walk away from this food right now and come back because I'm a hazard to myself. My eggs are falling on the floor, and I'm getting frustrated with the pan, for no reason. So gotta just step away, man. Step away.
No, oh my God, that's crazy. Cause like I have that thing too where I realize like I'm so stressed in the moment and I'm not dealing with it properly. And then like something really messy will happen. Like it happens every time. Like either like the entire container of blueberries falls out of the refrigerator, or like flour comes like I open the container, goes everywhere, and then like you will hear me.
Yes.
I come unglued, and I'm in the room. My wife is like hearing me like cursing me.
Yes.
Like
everywhere.
And she's like, "What's wrong? What are you doing?" I'm like, "I can't believe this is happening right now." And like when you're just trying to keep it together, and like that is absolutely. It's not the straw that broke the camel's back. It's like a cinder block that broke the camel's back at that moment, because at that moment you're like, you cannot possibly believe that something as messy as what just happened, as messier than anything you did in that moment, the entire time you're cooking, just blew it way out of proportion. You're like, God, I'm kidding right now. And that always happens. And like an egg, come on, that is like that's classic. Like this is gonna be a mess now.
This is a mess. And then sometimes you just have to laugh at yourself, like, because how many times I've dropped blueberries on the floor and I'm like, all right, let me get the vacuums. I'm like, Coco, Hazel, get over here, eat these blueberries that are now.
Come on, kids, we're gonna play a fun game of who could pick up the most blueberries without squishing
before
them.
the dogs eat them. Hurry, so.
Oh, the refrigerator won a couple. We're gonna let that go there for a little bit.
Or make a joke. Like I think sometimes like Julian's because Julian's always around when these things are happening. Sophia's a moody teenager. She's in her room hiding out, doing God knows what. But like, so like, I'll be like, oh my gosh, like, because it was the eggs. I keep remembering. Like I dropped it. I'm like, Mommy's supposed to be making scrambled eggs, not scrambled eggs on the floor. And like, like we gotta kind of joke, joke around a little bit because like, listen, things happen, and you know what? That is showing me that I am frustrated, and this is the universe saying, slow down.
Yeah,
it's funny because I thought the universe was just saying there's a direct correlation to these problems happening and Julian being in the room.
You just gotta be able to laugh at yourself, like laugh at your silly mistakes. Just to reiterate what you were saying, just it's so true because I go through. Well, our listeners don't know, but my friends know. I go through a lot of craziness, as we all do, and but I feel like sometimes I go through a little more craziness in my life for some reason, and I don't know why. And I just laugh. And I just say, life keeps on lifing.
Yes, it sure does.
And it just.
I'll be talking to Mike on the phone. He'll be like, "Come, man, like, what do you think more stuff happens to me than other people?" I was like, why does this stuff all happen to me? And I'm like, man, you're doing great, man. You're doing great.
I know. But
I think it's important because totes. Because like sometimes when it happens, I feel like with my wife, she's awesome in that like if she makes a joke that like you got like humor is really hard because like in the moment, like if you're really stressed out, like it can't be one of those things where you're not sure if it's a joke or not because you're always like, what's that supposed to mean? But like if it's really funny and really shocking and really just like goofy, like it'll kick you out of the situation. Like you need that as like a little jump start to get you out of that negative energy, and it's very good. Sometimes like we just laugh at it, but it's like you need like a safe word or something. I don't know what you need, but like it's something that could really kick you out of that craziness, and it's definitely important because if you could laugh in that moment or just see how when my wife, when we were getting married, I think we were so stressed out with like what was it? It was like the rehearsal dinner and everything else. I think wife was like sitting and she had like one of those like cupcake trees, and we're like, no one's sleeping, and we're like getting all mad. Like we get into a fight and we just started winging cupcakes at each other. It was a flipping disaster. And she's like, you just threw a cupcake at me. I'm like, I don't know what's happening anymore. And it was just like, ridiculous.
Love it.
So like, like years later, we're like, it's just so ridiculous. The things that actually happen,
You know what I wonder is like, what was more pressure, Disney World or the wedding?
Oh man!
And dealing with all the craziness,
Listen,
That's
all
the
I'll say is so far we have 2 episodes on Disney and we have no episodes on weddings. So I'll tell you that we're probably
I love
good
that.
point,
take
my
that
friend.
for what it's
Good
worth.
point.
So one part of the thing we're I guess we're kind of alluding to is kind of how to support each other, how to support your spouses and your friends and your family and all that stuff. So like, what do you guys, we talk about humor, that's kind of a good thing, right? And then I think that one thing that was kind of like this idea, and I think Sarah kind of hit the nail on the head a couple episodes ago, where we were like, where it was like someone like maybe a friend or even your spouse, whatever, or your kids were like telling you stuff, and you're like, wait, do you want advice right now, or do you want me just to listen? So this idea is like, are you upset about something else, or is this about me? And I think that's kind of something that like you need to kind of just get that gauge as far as where the person's feeling this way, or maybe they don't even know. So do you guys feel like you sometimes have to like kind of dig a little bit to kind of figure out how to support your, your spouse, or like where this negative energy maybe is coming from, or do you just kind of go about it the same way regardless?
I feel like Gene does a great job. Like he'll just kind of know, like, especially like, when he works, like I have the luxury of being able to be home relatively early, that, drive the kids around for the afternoon activities and things of that nature.
Is it a luxury though?
Yeah. I'm not hiring Uber to do it for me. So, but,
exactly.
but, I'm going to get a medallion for my car soon because I am a taxi at this point. But but Gene's good at that fact when he knows that he's been kind of working late, and he knows that I'm probably like day like 5 of like driving around and being like, this is great. And he's like, you know what? Like,
I'm great. We're great.
Yeah,
We're all great
he's like,
here.
order out, or he'll say like, who can I take on a Friday when he's working from home? Like, who can I drive around today, or will that make your life easier? So like, Gene's very like good at that, like remembering things. And then I think for myself, I try to think like when I'm trying to help alleviate him, is like, like just like Gene's way to his like little heart is like, oh, maybe some ice cream or cookie. Like, hey, you want to get some crumble? He'd be like, okay, yes. Like, so like, so,
yes,
just kind of like,
good man, Gene.
Just like knowing to like, what's going to like make the day just a little bit better, whether it's an adult beverage, or it's watching some show together that's mindless, or some ice cream, So I guess just kind of knowing who your person is.
Yeah.
And that kind of alleviates a little bit of the burnout.
Yeah, and like, or if you could try to mitigate it, if you just like, because we all get wrapped up in our own stuff, even if you're a couple, or co-parenting or whatever. And I think it's good sometimes to remember, or to recognize like, oh, this has been a really wild week, or it's been a challenging 3 weeks, or like I could hear the person's having like your person's having a bad day, like one thing after another kind of stuff, like to kind of just say like, let's order pizza tonight, and I think that helps. That's like supportive in some ways, take one thing off their plate.
I think that's really great, because like the one thing that I notice is that like it's hard. Like you gotta almost like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's almost like a scientist in like a bad like movie where like the whole world's falling apart. You have to like look for like the little clues and things of like what's about to happen.
Yes.
And I feel like, when people like this, almost like you go from like code yellow to code orange, and then you're in code red. You're like, oh my God.
Red alert.
Yeah. Because and I realized like my wife has been like so stressed with work, and she's been like really, really busy with all these projects and stuff. And for her, like we could talk about things, like whatever, talk all day is great. But like, if she comes home and she's just feeling overwhelmed and like this feeling of just stress and just hard work and like staying up late and everything else, if she comes home and like the back room where like we all hang out, watch TVs and stuff, if the kids' toys are everywhere or things are like disorganized, she's feeling it like physically.
Yes.
She's feeling it when she walks in.
Yes.
So like that went like the idea of walking in and like, you know, there's like toys everywhere. She's like, I am going to explode now. Now you will watch me.
Yes.
So like, that's like for her, I know that like that makes her happy. Like just like, you know, getting things tidied up, you know, put things away. And then all of a sudden it's like, you do it without being asked to do it, then you've gotten yourself from a code orange to a code yellow.
Correct.
And that's pretty good. You're moving the right direction.
You know what else helps for us too is like we've talked to the kids and said, hey, there's more of you than there is us.
Hey,
Yeah.
You know?
No, but seriously.
Hey, you.
You know, there's 3 of you, there's 2 of us,
Yep.
and mommy and daddy
And they're
are trying
like,
to
oh,
hold
you
it
noticed?
down.
Yes.
Yeah. And we need your help. I mean,
Yep.
you know, it just basically comes down to, you know, we got to work together as a family to survive, to be there for each other, to help each other out, you know, and mommy's, you know, the dishes are piled up. Mommy could use some help.
Yes.
You know, the garbage needs to be taken out. Somebody take out the garbage, you know,
Yep.
and they've definitely like, you still have to ask them. They don't
Of
do
course.
it on their own, you know, but they do it, you know, and that's just one way to alleviate that burnout, because I think like we as parents think, oh my God, we're the parents, we got to do everything. And you know, we got to do a lot of stuff, but you know, they have 2 hands, they have 2 feet, you know, they can, and they have great minds and they can help out and be a part of the family. You don't have to take care of everything yourself, you know?
I think that's I think that's absolutely true. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with saying to the kids, hey, it's been crazy, or been stressed, or like mommy's back has been killing her and you guys are leaving your stuff all over the place. It's not fair, you know, especially as they're getting older, you know, like a little 2-year-old, they don't know any better, but as they start getting older, 5 or 6 or 7, they can help with little things. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think my Uncle Manuel said back in the day, one day, he's my godfather, and he sat us down. He's my mom's.
It's like an orange tree.
Yes, you remember that story? You remember that? Oh,
yes.
Mike, you're the best. So, Uncle,
I am killing it. Our memories today. Yes.
Uncle Manuel, he said,
What orange tree?
So Uncle Manuel, he was holding a plant that my mom had, and I don't know where he got this conversation from, but you know, he was like, picture the family is like an orange tree, and everyone wants the sweet fruit from the orange. They want the juice from the orange. But if we don't take care of the tree, the tree is never going to produce the fruit. So, and I was like, oh. So after that, I always thought of it. The family is an orange tree, and if you want some OJ with your breakfast, children, then we got to take care of this tree. So pick up.
That's amazing. I love
Plant
that.
the tree.
I
water
remember
the
you said
tree.
that, so that's why I totally remembered it. I'm like, I remember this. It's so good.
Thank you, Uncle Manuel. That's a life lesson right there.
Yeah. Come on, well.
But I feel like there's like this feeling of like you know what? Like this is a good segue to the whole thing of like this. Let's just get it out of there. Listen, you're in the car. I don't care what you're doing. We do this thing in this podcast, and I swear the bejeebers, there is no way that those pictures on Facebook, those Instagram pictures, whatever you follow, whatever you're clicking on, those families, those people, those lives are not real. Let's just be honest. So like we talked about this. Sarah and I were talking about this today, and I know Mike, we were, you know, I didn't see you. We didn't talk to you until later, but we were just talking about like this idea of like, well, first off, the perfectionism just has to stop. It's ridiculous. But like this feeling like when you have people coming over, like there is a distinct difference between dirty and disorganized. And as long as you're not dirty, you can be a little disorganized, and that is okay.
Yes.
And you don't need to, things don't need to be filed in every little spot just because like, you know, people get it. Like, obviously, there's a difference between walking in and being like, you know, hoarders and there's like a dead cat underneath a pile of papers.
Right.
But there's like, you know, obviously, like this is so ridiculous. Like, when did we become this? This is almost like the equivalent of like, you know, that big thing like, you know, 10 years ago where like, like girls were seeing these supermodels on magazines that weighed like 20 pounds and they were like, this is a negative impact because blah, blah. Now I think it's like a different thing. Now I think it's like this belief that people like Chip and Joanna. I don't know who these people are. Why am I referencing them? But people like they sell stuff at Target, I guess. So the idea is like we have to match this lifestyle that's not real. So like we always feel like we can never meet that standard, and that probably does deliver a level of stress because people are working, they have kids, and like you're bringing this feeling home. And then you're like, oh, well, like we have company coming over tonight. Now the work week is over. Now you're even more stressed because you don't have enough time to do it. Like give yourself a break.
Yes.
Yeah. Not too much because you remember you got to keep clean, but give yourself a break. And this is just got to stop, man. It's crazy.
I can totally relate to that. Like even just the, if you ever see like those social media things where they're organizing their refrigerator with all these little like, compartments.
The compartments. Oh, I love those videos.
Yes. And
yeah,
then,
it's almost like they got the refrigerator delivered and they just went shopping for the first time. Where was all the food before you started doing that?
And then my refrigerator. I'm like, oh God, I'm like the berries.
Yeah. And you want your refrigerator to look like that because it's like it looks great. It's organized. It's it makes everything so easy to access. But then you open your refrigerator and you're like, I'm not gonna just
parsley from 2020.
No, seriously, like that cheese is like, yo, what's up, Sarah? How you doing? I'm like, hey, dude. New haircut.
It's like it's got some like eyeballs and it's like starting to grow.
No, it's ridiculous.
I was greener than last time I saw you.
So ridiculous.
Look good. Like when you're done.
I know.
Like, oh, your books are color coordinated, and then by author, and then by come on, man, like enough.
To speak to what you're saying, like that adds the pressure and the stress, right?
Yes,
like,
it does.
Oh my God,
it
how
totally
do these
does.
people who have like 5 or 6 kids and can compartmentalize their refrigerator, and I can't even do it with 2 or 3 kids,
I know, like I'm looking at my wife, and we had people over for Thanksgiving, and we, I've been talking about this forever because we've been dealing with it forever. In August, we had this huge rainstorm. We had a leak in our basement, and we had a pipe break, and then we had it was a whole thing. So we're still dealing with that, and we have like stuff is flipping everywhere. God, it has probably been healthy for us now that we've sort of dealt with it for a little bit, but it's like we cannot make this look great no matter what we do. Like there could be trips to the basement. My wife's amazing; she's been organizing stuff, and I'm trying to be aware of what I'm seeing in the room because it's like, oh, maybe that doesn't need to go there. But the idea is like it is not possible to make this look like we have it normally, and like there is just people will have to deal with it. I think that is the phrase that I think she said or I said. That was the phrase that was said aloud. People will deal, and they will be fine. And that is okay.
It's okay. You know what? Another thing is like the kids, my mindset definitely has shifted because before, like if anyone came over to the house, I obviously like clean, but I would be like, oh my God, like everything, the banister has to be dusted and like everything has like the radiator covers. So I guess the kids like knew that was crazy. So I would do that. But now I'm like, you know what? I'm like, we live here. I'm like, we're living. And like one time Julian was like, Mom, do we have to clean like where it's good guests or is it that we're just living? And I'm like, just living. Like, that's it. That's the phrase. We're just living. Like, listen, as long as.
But Julian, we're no longer going to go halfway between living and dirty. We're going to
showroom and we're just living. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, the stuff on the counter or like, the dining room, there is a pile of stuff probably there. It's the pile.
Yeah.
But like, listen, we're living. That's all I could do for you. The couch is clean. The, floors are clean. So whatever, come in. There's toilet paper in the bathroom. Yeah. You're welcome.
I like that. I feel a little bit better. I think this is one message, man. Like seriously, like enough already. Like stop perpetuating the perfect Facebook post. Like it's fine. It's really fine. Because you know what? The people that are doing that, honestly, they're probably not happy.
They're probably not.
Or they have one corner of their house that looks amazing and there's probably 17 boxes and like 2 inches over.
That is what I'm convinced of,
You just have to keep this 4 foot by 3 foot.
Or they have like another refrigerator that is actually crazy with the mold that's saying hello to you, and then they have like their showroom influencer refrigerator that's never touched. I'm convinced.
Exactly.
Yeah, they bought it on the side.
Yes.
See, these are the moments where we just have to come. We just got to be aware of it all. So one of the things that I think is important that that I think maybe we just kind of have to like figure out is teaching by example. And I think that this is something that when it comes to stress and burnout, I think I'm lacking. So what are some of the ways that you guys maybe try to like, we talked a little bit how like, talking about how like it's not, making it really clear that it's not them, saying that you need a moment. What about like healthy ways, like in other ways? Are there other ways in like how you're speaking or how you're talking to each other, or maybe there's certain phrases? Anything that comes to mind, guys?
Like Taylor and I have like a lot of boxes in our room right now because of, the holidays. And our room looks like, disorganized,
Chaos.
but it's not dirty.
Right.
It looks
Just
like
take
chaos.
the picture in the corner that's set up perfectly. It'd be fine.
Exactly. So, the kids see it, obviously, because Lucas will definitely be like, well, why are you telling me to clean my room, Mom, when your room's not clean, And I'll be like,
look at the pot kettle and the kettle black.
Yeah, exactly. So, and, that's when you just tell them, hey, listen, we can't always get to everything, baby steps, take it, step by step, and lead by example. That's all.
I think something that was like a big deal is like maybe our generation, but maybe it is. Maybe we're guilty of it too. But I found it more kind of like our parents' generation, possibly. This like mentality of like not apologizing for your actions or like not necessarily like admitting fault. And I think that something, we talk to each other about it. Like, just, the idea of coming to grips that you messed up is important. Yes. But there was a moment recently with Ethan that kind of came to mind where all my kids are different. Like Jacob will get more upset when he's tired, and like it's more of just like he's just like can't deal. He's just like he's going to bed. He's so exhausted. He's working so hard, and we get it. But with Ethan, when he gets like stressed out or like something's bothering him, it looks like he's mad at us. Like I am telling you, it looks like he's yelling at us. He's screaming, and like my knee jerk reaction is to like bring it back at least at the same volume, because I'm like, no, you're not talking about, and this idea, I'm like, wait, it happened the other night, and because I think it kind of tied into the episode that I happened to think of this, where like I went to his room and I'm like, you know what? I kind of realized you're not mad at me, are you? And he's like, no, and he's like really upset. I'm like, I am so sorry. I think I got upset because you got loud, and I think my initial reaction was like, you are being so disrespectful, but I don't think it was about that. So I'm gonna apologize, and I know that whatever you're upset about has nothing to do with us, and something's bothering you, and I'm so sorry. And I gave him a big hug, and he was upset, and he was like, it's not you, and he totally recognized that. And it was wild because if I didn't, and I'm sure I'm guilty of it, I'm sure I've yelled at this kid when he's yelling at us, and I totally messed up because it's nothing to do with us, but I'm reacting. And it's like, without a doubt, something where he was something in his head was bothering him, and he distinctly knew that he was not yelling at us, and he was probably getting yelled at by us, which didn't help the situation any. And then he was really aware that like it had nothing to do with the situation. But like, just think about that. Like, I'm a 45-year-old guy. Like, it's like, if I'm not realizing the difference between, bless you, if I'm not realizing the difference between him being mad at me or dealing with stressful situations, how is a kid supposed to be able to differentiate between that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that you just kind of, the fact that you took that time to sit with him and like talk it out.
Yeah, 1 out of 20, times ain't bad, right?
Listen,
yeah, but even if it's one out of 20,
yeah.
that's one time that he's gonna remember.
Exactly.
And you're teaching him to like work through his emotions, and it recognizes emotions, and and say, hey, look, daddy can mess up too, but I recognized it, I'm here, and I'm working it out with you, bud.
I feel like it's good to give them like a freebie,
Yeah, I think that's part of being like, also back to that perfectionism, is that it's like you're not allowed to make a mistake as well as a parent, and like, or you think, oh my God, what are the repercussions? Like, what emotional damage am I putting on these kids? And listen, like we're trying our best. We are flawed humans, and I think that's okay. At least I'm telling myself in this moment, because I'm sure I will be like crying my pillow at some point when I messed up,
Yeah, of course.
But there are times, and one thing I do is like, when I do apologize, and like, let's say, sometimes they'll be like, it's okay, Mom. I go, no, actually, it really wasn't okay that Mommy yelled at you like that. Like us, like, because I don't necessarily want them. I don't know. That's just a thing of mine. It's like, like, it's all right. I'm like, no, it's not, but
No, let's not glaze over that.
Yeah, but thank you for saying that. Like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have yelled, or I was short with you, or I lost my patience, or because I had like something like that in the car with Sophia. She was having an attitude, and I was like, well, if she doesn't care, I don't care either. And I think that hurt her feelings, and I had to, apologize later on to her, and I said, I'm sorry. I'm like, I let your attitude affect how I was handling the situation. I shouldn't have done that. I was being petty with you, So like, yeah.
In the moment, it's so hard though. It's like surface level stuff is like in your face and you're just like, reacting,
It's so hard. It's so hard because you know what? Parenting burnout is not like, it's not after a week of things. It could just even be within the day. A day could be really stressful or very tired,
Definitely.
or maybe an issue that keeps coming up over and over again. And you're like, I am burnt out on this issue, So like it happens. And like another thing I do too with Julian, I see I do this a lot with because he does get very frustrated sometimes with homework. And like, usually he gets it, but he's like a perfectionist. And sometimes, so I'll say, you know what? You're getting frustrated. I'm beginning to get frustrated because you're frustrated. Let's just step away. Take a break. Sometimes it's easier to walk away and then we'll come back to it like being fresh again. Mm-hmm. And I'll be like, all right, you go play your game over there for a second. I'm going to go upstairs. Again, that mental timer of like 20 minutes. I come back and like, okay, let's start again. And I think that's a good way, I feel like, to handle it, because when it's getting frustrating, just futzing around with something you're never going to get the right answer. So sometimes it's good to walk away.
I like that. And sometimes like different people like need different things in the moment. And I don't mean like, obviously that's groundbreaking. No, but I mean like the idea is like some kids want one of the parents. Don't be offended. It may not be you. One of the kids might need like, like physical touch. Another kid might need just like personal space. Another kid might need just like you to be in their proximity to like get through whatever they're doing, just knowing that you're there next to them. And I think like once you start to figure out which kid is in what way and it changes constantly, but those things seem to like kind of like be prevalent in some ways. So anyway, this has been kind of an interesting conversation. I'm really enjoying it. And I think we kind of hit on a couple things that make us feel maybe a little bit better. But the question this week is what ways have you recognized parenting burnout in the past, and how have you dealt with it? We'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to answer this question, have comments, questions, suggestions for the show, you can get in touch with us in one of three ways. One, you could leave a message on our Hey the Parents voicemail line at 559-537-5437. That's 559-LAY-KIDS. And for some reason, if you are calling about a pool, that is not the number. 2, you can email the show at heytheparents@gmail.com. Or 3, you can join us on Instagram or the socials. It's in the show notes. So we're back for this part of the show. It's called Time to Unplug. And on this episode, time to unplug is not just a thing that we say. We are dead bent? That's not the saying. Hell bent? I don't know. We feel strongly, hell bent. We feel so strongly that it is important for you to, that you'll be a better we if you take care of me. And that's what this episode has been about. And that's what this section's about. So this gives us a chance to decompress because you'll be a better we if you take care of me. So Sarah D, let's start it all out. What is your time to unplug?
So this time to unplug is David's cookies. So I never had them before. So there's these, like, someone brought into the office the David's red cookies, the David cookies. They're melt in your mouth cookies, and they're in a red tin. And I was like, oh God. I was like, oh, these manufactured cookies are not gonna be good at all. I took one bite and I was like, oh my God. I was like, what is this heaven? And I think I had like 5 each day. That they were in the office. And then so much so that
real friends don't let friends eat cookies alone.
Yes. And then and I was like, here, Mike, take some. But our friend Carolyn, like, she left the last one for me. And I was like, yay, thank you. I was so excited. So I bought myself a new tin for myself.
Good. Deserved.
And thank you. And,
that must have been the powdered sugar that got you.
It was a thought of powdered sugar. So they're like, if you know, like Mexican cookies, or I think there's
like the wedding cookies,
like the wedding cookies, and then there's also very similar to, like, I think they're like, there's like these Polish cookies that also have like, they're like just butter, and like powdered sugar.
Anything with just butter's good.
and like with like pecans or whatever.
So good.
My mom used to always make them, and those were like every time Christmas came around, those were my favorite cookies to have. They taste just like that and like just as good as my mom's. That's why I got them.
Oh, no way.
They were so good, and because I've had some and then they haven't been like as great, so I had them in the garage, hiding, just for me.
They taste better that way.
Yes,
when they're
they
hiding.
are. And I literally go in and I take like 3 or 4 and I've been sneaking them in. And then I did tell Gene the other day, I was like, oh, I have a dirty secret to tell you. He's like, what? And I was like, I got these cookies. He's like, ooh. And then he's like, oh, he's like, those are my kind of cookies. I'm like, even better. I was like, well, they're here if you want them. But that's been my guilty pleasure.
They're like these little like they almost like you look at them and they almost give you the like powdered sugar Hostess mini donut vibes.
Yes.
And then you pick it up and then you bite. It's got like a little like some nuts are in there, and it's you know what?
They're delicious.
Sarah D. It's so good, out of control. Man, Mike Levine.
What do you got?
Is it time to roll
it's time.
the galaxy from far, far away?
Dude, it is time. And you know what? It's anytime. Listen, it doesn't matter if Star Wars is bad, if it's good. It's Star Wars, and a new Star Wars show has dropped, and I am loving it. It's Skeleton Crew. It's on Disney Plus. Has Jude Law in it with like all these new like kid actors.
Little kids.
Yeah, and I know we're a show about we're talking about right now decompressing and kind of getting away from kids and taking care of yourself. But let me tell you, it's cool. It's like if you've ever seen Goonies, it's got that Goonies vibe, and it's just fun. Anything Star Wars always makes me feel better. So I'm glad to see some new Star Wars content out there, and yeah, makes me feel good.
You know what I like about it too? It's because like we gotta just Skeleton Crew, we got Jim out for a hot second. The cool thing about the show is you don't necessarily have to know that much about Star Wars to enjoy it.
Yes.
So like it's like, oh, this is refreshing. It's kind of how The Mandalorian was just like, we could just enjoy this for what it is.
Yeah.
And it was
exactly.
like, you don't need to have a encyclopedia of knowledge to go in and watch it, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
But you know what is good?
What?
Speaking of high levels of knowledge, AP Bio. Not talking about the test. I am talking about the show. So the show
Bio.
on Netflix, AP Bio, is so the kids need to be like in REM sleep for this one. So
Really?
It is 100%. It is so inappropriate and so wonderful in so many ways. It's on Netflix. It is, I think, up to the 4th season. And we're not too far into it. I think my wife and I are up to like episode 4 or 5. And what it basically is about this guy who he's one of the actors from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and it is about this guy who he was working at Harvard, and he has to take a year off for like mystery. He obviously got in trouble and did something wrong in some way, and he ends up getting this job where he has this job that he does not want. He doesn't even care about. He doesn't care about the kids. He has no plans of actually teaching biology, and it is so wildly inappropriate, but it's so funny.
Wow.
And this guy is
I've been
just
wanting
in
to
this
see
job.
it actually. Okay, good.
I'm telling
Good
you,
to
you
know.
have to watch this. I don't even know what to say, what not to say, because I want to ruin it. But it's really funny. If you just need like sometimes like you need that like dark sense of like comedy that's like really, really good. So like if you find yourself like, if you think like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is kind of has that like darker side. If you find like you like that like that sort of humor that it's really intelligently written, but it's definitely like a little inappropriate. I think you'll really enjoy it. You know what? Do yourself a favor, hop on Netflix, watch the trailer for AP Bio. That little minute and a half really says everything about the show. It gets a little bit more obnoxious and things later on, but the trailer is great. So if you're into it, I'm gonna keep watching because it is delightful. We're having a lot of fun, and sometimes like for my wife and I, like she'll have her show, I'll have my show, but then when we find our show, it's so satisfying because then we're both really enjoying it.
Love it.
So it's good. So we got some cookies, we got some snacks. You got the Star Wars, you got the AP Bio. Man, you guys are rolling into the holiday season. You got you're going to be up late wrapping those gifts. So why not put something on like that to enjoy your time and eat a couple cookies in the process? So I think we're just out of time. It's been so much fun hanging out on this episode on Parenting Burnout. We talked about the strategies, we talked about the stress, we talked about hiding away for a moment, sitting in the car. Who's going to bring the kids to dance because you might just get 45 minutes to sit there for yourself? Who is going to pick that other spouse up when they're feeling the stress. But there's so many things that we could do. But we know that most importantly, you got to be a better we if you take care of me. And in that process, we know that there's no such thing as perfection. So let's take a moment to thank our listeners and supporters for donating to the show. If you want to help support this show so we can make episodes like this one, we have a link to donate in the show notes. If you know the means to do so, we really appreciate when you tell your friends or family about the podcast so we can reach more listeners. Maybe we can learn from them and they can learn from us in our growing community. If you get a chance, please leave us a review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We can't wait to explore this parenting thing again with you next week on Hey the Parents, because every week it's an honest discussion about raising kids. Don't forget to hug your kids and charge those Chromebooks. That's going to do it for me, for Sarah, and for Mike. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey the Parents is produced by Mike Levine, Sarah Desirines, and me, Michael Height. I edit and mix our show. Our intro voice recording was done by the one and only Coltrane. If you like our show, we hope that you'll consider going to our show notes and help support the podcast. Check the show notes for social media information and contacts, and we look forward to seeing you next time.